Earlier this month, the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, one of Bollywood emerging superstars, took the nation by shock. It was unprecedented, it was disheartening, it was painful, it was distressful. People poured their emotions on social media, tweeting, posting pictures, and audio and video clips. But the death, the suicide that was committed, raised far more important questions. Those about the lobbies that operate in Bollywood, about the prevailing nepotism, about a lot of quality when it comes to movie making. Today, we are not going to have a question and answer about what happened. We are not going to have a debate. It's a conversation I'm going to have with my co worker Karan about what is wrong with Bollywood and where does it go from here. Because this is one chapter in the history of Bollywood that no one would be able to forget in a jiffy. Hi, Karan.
Hi Tushar, thanks for having me.
Karan, this whatever happened, I mean, it was a suicide, yes, but it has taken the nation by surprise, shock. People are not able to process yet what really happened. Your 2 cents on it.
That's right, Tushar. Actually, this is a very difficult situation. Of course, the loss of Sushant Singh Rajput's life is extremely tragic. And a lot of tweets and a lot of Facebook posts, a lot of outpouring of remembrance of the actor. But I don't know if there are psychologists who are watching this, maybe they can help me out here. The thing is, what's happening now is that there is a need to find the cause or the reason for why he took his life, because people are not able to wrap their minds around why this happened. If you remember, even when during the World War One, who remembers who triggered it, right? But not knowing the cause just makes you sort of desperately find a cause, which is where now people are talking about Salman Khan, Karan Johar, and they are making the distinction between the outsiders and the insiders, and how the outsiders have a raw deal. So that's why it's almost like baying for blood, which is understandable, but I don't think it's the right direction to take.
Karan, to add to that, I also felt that, it was more of a reaction to the superstar. Because a lot of news has also come up in the recent days of a lot of junior actors committing suicide, people who are into character artists. For instance, there was this one actor who acted in some very prominent movies, one of them being Hrithik Roshan's Laksh. He committed suicide very recently, I think just before the lockdown. And there was just a 2 or 3 page report of it on some scattered websites. So I think there is also a possibility that people, the audience, they reacted to the superstardom of Sushant Singh Rajput and not just the mental health or the mental struggles he was going through. What do you think about it?
Right, Tushar, but he wasn't really a superstar per se. I mean, if you're talking about superstardom, we would talk about the Salman Khan, the Shah Rukh Khan, and all those. But possibly he was on his way to go there if things worked out well for him. But I think it's more a debate of, over the last 15-20 years, whether it's cricket, whether it's entertainment, whether it's politics, most importantly, the idea of encouraging or promoting your relatives or friends to sort of work with you and giving them opportunities has become, for the lack of a better word, a really bad thing to do, because what you're doing is you're doing that at the expense of actual talent. Now, that seems to be one of the driving factors in Sushant Singh Rajput's case, because they feel like the industry betrayed him. They did not give him enough opportunities, which is why he ended up doing this. But honestly speaking, we don't know. That's a very nice hero-villain narrative that we paint. We say all these Khans and all these guys are the villains and they aren't giving up-and-coming stars opportunities. But I think that's too black and white to think of it that way.
Karan, you say that, of course, it's right that the Bollywood industry was not giving him work or probably denying him work. But there is also the question of nepotism, which brings us to our first point, the question of nepotism. Now, one of the ways in which people have reacted to the death of Sushant Singh Rajput, a very unfortunate death, is they've started questioning nepotism way stronger. Earlier, also, there were debates about nepotism. Say, for example, Anandya Pandey made her debut last year in Student of the Year 2, and people were very critical of her performance. People have been critical of Arjun Kapoor's performance too. The movie on the third battle of Panipat came out. People were very critical of the performance. People have been critical about the performances of Sonam Kapoor, Sonakshi Sinha, and many other stars like that, even Varun Dhawan. Though most of these stars have given 1 or 2 good movies. For instance, Varun Dhawan did some phenomenal work in October. That was one of the good movies he did. Or Badlapur, for instance. But largely, people are also blaming nepotism for this. Now, of course, we can say that some of the actors or actresses have done some very poor work and are in the industry because of nepotism. But how far do you see this nepotism play card being a factor in what really happened with Sushant Singh Rajput? What are your thoughts on it?
Tushar, I think that's a very good point that you bring up. So I actually look at this from a very multidimensional perspective. I mean, we are a country where arranged marriages happen, right? Now, absolutely nothing wrong in that. I'm just stating the fact. So, how do arranged marriages happen? You go into you dig into your network to find, a possible bride or a groom. That's sort of embedded in our culture. I mean, it's everywhere around us. You look for a job, you're like, okay, can you get a job for my brother? That's embedded into our socio sort of cultural landscape without judging it. But now, of course, what's happening is people are starting to sort of break away from that gradually. And how that's happening is the entertainment industry, especially, is extremely brutal, right? Actually, Salman Khan, for instance, has been enjoying a lot of success over the last few years commercially. But there was a long period where he did not enjoy any success. So, frankly, what the nature of the entertainment industry is brutal, right? You could be relaunched 10 times, 20 times. If you're not good enough, the public is going to reject you eventually. It's the public's sort of view of how it should happen. So, the answer to nepotism, what I feel is that we should not be telling the Salman Khans, the Shah Rukh Khans, the Karan Johars to, stop hiring the people that you do regularly. Try and hire talent from outside. I mean, who is to say who is an outsider, who is an insider? For instance, Karan Johar actually promoted Shakun Batra. Now, he is not really an insider. He was the director of Kapoor and Sons. But then he became a part of the inside circle. Similarly, when Shah Rukh Khan, who is supposed to be the face of like a self-made actor, came to Mumbai in the early 90s, Salim Khan's family actually supported him to a very large extent. So does that make him an insider or an outsider? How much of this support in your journey categorizes you in either direction? So what I feel is that instead of demonizing the Karan Johar and all these production houses, maybe one approach can be create space for new talent to come about, which is what is happening thanks to OTT platforms, for instance. What do you think about this, Tushar?
Karan, we'll come to the OTT point in a bit, but since you made a very fine point, say nepotism cannot be blamed always. Even Karan Johar made that point. He said it's my money and it will be my decision where I put that money, be it an actor or an actress, be it someone from the relative circle. You're right about that. That's how we work. I mean, that's the only reason we've seen Rahul Gandhi get so many launches, though it's a different industry. But see, it's not just about nepotism alone here. Even if we discard that card for a moment, we say that, all right, nepotism had nothing to do with Sushant Singh Rajput. Given Sushant Singh Rajput's one of very good, very critically acclaimed recent movies was Kedarnath, which was with another star kid, which is Sara Ali Khan. But then there is also the question of lobbies, Karan. There were some tweets, I don't know, we cannot confirm if they were true or false, but there were some tweets by KRK, Kamal R. Khan, who runs a digital media portal covering Bollywood, which said that some big production houses had blocked Sushant Rajput. Now, these big budget production houses, they include the likes of Dharma Production, which is owned by Karan Johar, YRF, which belongs to Aditya Chopra and Uday Chopra. Then there is Excel Entertainment, which has Ritesh Sidwani and Farhan Akhtar taking care of it. Then there's also the Salman Khan films, which Salman Khan produces himself. And you see a lot of star kids coming out of there. And then there is also T-Series, the question of T-Series, which has been trending today because of the accusation Sonu Nigam made. So, Karan, let's, even if we discard that question of the nepotism lobby or the idea of nepotism, there's also the problem of the lobby. Because what happens when lobbies come into play? For instance, I'll give you the example of Zoya Akhtar movie, whose movies are often produced under the Excel Entertainment banner. Now, if you see her movies, all of them brilliantly made, you see a similar faces in terms of character artists, even in terms of actors, the main actors, even the supporting actors. So obviously there are some lobbies that exist in terms of actors. So it gets very difficult for an outsider to make their way in. Now, of course, one could argue that Sushant Singh Rajput or Shah Rukh Khan, for that matter, they all started somewhere and eventually worked their way inside. But today, with all the social media, the public relations that goes on, the kind of backdoor work that goes on behind the actors, the lobbies can also act as a hindrance. And a lot of people have actually complained that Salman Khan was one of the reasons that denied them work. Now, you're right, we cannot always blame Salman Khan. It's an easy, low hanging fruit to pick that, oh, because of Salman Khan, someone else failed. But then we can also not deny the existence of these lobbies. For instance, Arijit Singh also had a myth with Salman Khan, which resulted in one of Arijit's song from Salman's movie Sultan being deleted or being removed. I think this was one of the songs which later went on to become a chart buster. So, instances like these always come up. Vivek Oberoi also spoke about the psychological stress he went through after his breakup with one of the leading actresses and what Salman Khan role wasn't there. So, Karan, these lobbies are also have to be factored in. But you made a fine point there before we began that the OTT is opening up a lot of space for the other actors who have often struggled to find some work. I think to add to that, Jimmy Shergill, for instance, he debuted in Mohabbatein somewhere around 2000, 2001. Now, he's never got the credit he rightfully deserves in Bollywood. He's never got those big, meaty roles, barring one or two movies. But today, he's a very big player in the OTT space. And a lot of other actors too. What do you think about that?
Tushar, that's right actually, and I want to touch on this lobby point a little bit because you see now for our viewers who watch Hollywood movies, you would notice that there are some directors like say Martin Scorsese. Martin Scorsese used to pretty much always work with Robert De Niro, the Harvey Keitels and the Joe Pescis. And you see that trend with in the modern times, someone like Wes Anderson, who tends to repeat his star cast, and because they tend to feel sort of comfortable with who they are working with, right? And we give them that freedom to just keep working with the same people because there is such a large bandwidth out there in Hollywood. Because nobody gets denied roles. So I think that's a great lesson for us in Bollywood because what's happening is we have a lot of people who are repeating their star cast and the same players, the actors, the cast, the crew. But what is happening is beyond that, there isn't much space. Now, I think that the job of the industry and elsewhere as well is to open up that space, right? That allows young talent to come out, which is where exactly these new platforms like Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hotstar and all these places are providing.
Actually, a good point. So, what happened yesterday? I think Netflix released a new movie, which is Bulbul. I think it's produced by Anushka Sharma's production house. So, it has two actors, Avinash Tiwari and Tripti Dimritri. I'm getting her name wrong, but they both acted in a movie called Leila Majnu, which came out, I think, last year. The movie got a very lukewarm response in the theaters. Now, I was introduced to that movie by someone I know very recently, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Though the story is the same Romeo Juliet ploy, which has been played years and years after, but the movie was actually good. Now, what happened for more than a year and a half, these two actors never got any rightful credit from Bollywood, even though their opening movie was spectacular. Now, what has happened with Netflix movies Bulbul, which released just yesterday, suddenly the two actors are getting a good response for one, their performance, and two, also their performance in the previous movie. So, this is one good thing about the OTT platforms that it gives new actors a chance. We've seen junior actors, character actors, for instance, Pankaj Tripathi, for instance, he headed the Mirzapur series on Amazon Prime. Vivek Oberoi is back with Inside Edge. And a lot of other supporting stars in movies are now becoming the main leads on web series. And this is a great thing. What other thing the web series also does, it expands the domain of work, which you rightly pointed out happens in Hollywood. Now, suddenly we are seeing this explosion of OTT platforms. We have the good ones, for instance, the good ones in the sense of the capital they have. Prime, Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney Hotstar. Disney Hotstar is going to pump money and money. KK Menon, who never got the best roles in Bollywood, he headed one of the most watched series in India, which was Special Ops. Now, that series was watched more than any movie is ever seen, an average movie seen in the theaters. So, this is where the OTT platforms are doing well for actors. Now, it's not just actors which are currently in the industry now. It's also about the actors who have left the industry and now making a comeback. Disney Hotstar, for instance, with a lot of capital behind it, it gave Sushmita Sen a comeback. It gave Chandrachur Singh, who I think everyone has almost forgotten, a comeback. It gave Lara Datta a web series of her own. And these are web series not just a one-off. These are not just a spin-off which will come and people will forget. These are being set up for future seasons, probably 5, 7, 10. We don't know. Saif Ali Khan has moved to the digital space. So this way, the OTT platforms are doing well in breaking the nepotism card, because a lot of star kids don't want to start their careers with the OTT platforms. The problem with the lobbies will still be there, because even on the Prime, you see Excel Entertainment making the series, which is again owned by Ritesh Sidhwani and Farhan Akhtar. Then you have Netflix having a very juicy collaboration with Dharma Productions and so forth. But yes, the other platforms, for instance, MX Player is there, which has, I think, more than 150 million views because it's a free platform. Then you have Alt Balaji. Then you have Z5. Z5 is producing some great original content. So all of these platforms will be very great enablers for actors. So the point of nepotism may be discarded there, and the point of lobbies will slowly go away there. That's one point. The second thing about the quality. Karan, you just spoke about the problem of commercial cinema and how people watch commercial cinema and then complain about its quality. What do you think will be the future of commercial cinema after the OTT platforms make a prominent space for themselves in the Indian audience circle?
Tushar, I think it's already evolving in a very significant way. Now, just like in politics, we talk about the Latins media and the club that controls opinion. We also tend to sort of look down upon commercial cinema in, say, in India. So, for instance, you might scoff at a Salman Khan movie or an Ajay Devgan movie or so on and so forth. But instead of judging the audience's view of what those movies are, I mean, it depends on what we get from it and what others get from it. But even within this context, what is happening is, of late, people are starting to see what can be made, what's out there. So, for instance, people saw Sacred Games and thought that was good. People are being exposed to TV series like Black Mirror, for instance, or Better Call Saul, Breaking Bad, Narcos is one of the most watched Netflix series. So what's happening is there is a sort of opening up of the mental bandwidth as to what is possible. I mean, like, I often joke about this with my friends. Like, Hollywood produces your Interstellar, Gravity, Arrival, and just spectacular sci-fi movies. And what we have to give in the name of sci-fi is something like Koi Mil Gaya and Krish and stuff like that. I mean, we are woefully behind the market in terms of sort of where we can go. But what is happening now is that with the series being launched on Netflix and other platforms, I think this is becoming possible, because when more and more people get exposed to this kind of new content, and when producers see that, okay, the tastes are evolving, so we might as well cater to the new tastes. Because frankly, Tushar, I think this one point should be underlined. It's largely the public that determines whether you're going to succeed, whether you're not going to succeed. I mean, it's just like in business. You make a product that you think is fabulous, right? It's the greatest notebook or the greatest pen that I've made. But if there is no market need for it at that point of time, it's not going to sell. So that is what happens exactly even with the entertainment industry. But what is happening now is, because of the exposure to the wide variety of cinema, the tastes are evolving and the market is going to stretch out and have to cater to the new interests. And that is a good thing overall, I think.
Well, a good point about the market being stretched and public determining what kind of artists they want to see. I think it's probably the supply and demand logic here which puts a Badshah before Sonu Nigam, because Sonu Nigam has been on Twitter since morning stating that there are singers who are asked to come and dub their songs, and then someone like a Badshah or a Honey Singh copies it. So probably, yes, you're right that the public actually determines which artist is going to succeed in these times, because with social media, with so much data available from the YouTube, from the digital media portals, streaming portals, from TV, there's so much data available with the producers that they are in a position to decide better what artists they want to put forward. Now, as consumers of cinema, you and I may disagree with a famous celebrity. We may not like a Badshah song over a Sonu Nigam song, but then there are people who prefer Badshah. But then, now that is one thing, but this also hampers the quality of cinema. You made a very fine point, and this is a joke I think everyone makes, that Hollywood produces Interstellar, they produce The Martian, and we produce Mission Mangal. I saw that movie and the science was dumbed down so poorly that it felt as if a group of class 4 kids could get together and send a rocket not just to Mars but probably to Jupiter and Pluto and even landed there. So the problem is of dumbing it down and actually the quality. Another example, Salman Khan with all the PR behind his back. I'll give the example of Salman Khan because he does the most action films in commercial cinema. He gets one commercial movie out on every festival or twice or thrice a year. In fact, he had a Eid release which got postponed because of the coronavirus. Hollywood gives us Extraction, which just released on 24th April, went on to become one of the most viewed movies on Netflix because everyone was in the middle of a lockdown. So the quality is going to determine also who is going to be on the big screen or on the digital screen and who is not going to. So this is going to be a very good filter when it comes to things like nepotism, lobbies, because even the star kids know that they need to do some real work to be accepted. And even the lobbies, the likes of Dharma or Excel Entertainment or YRF, they all know that they need to put their best foot forward. For instance, Dharma Productions had a movie with Sushant Singh Rajput, unfortunately his second last movie, which was Drive. It starred him and Jacqueline Fernandez along with a few other actors. That movie was a dud. That movie turned out to be, I think, a laughing stock for people across India because of the very poor CGI. And irony is, it was coming from Dharma Productions, one of the biggest, probably the biggest production houses in Bollywood. At the same time, there is Zoya Akhtar and Farhan Akhtar producing series like Inside Edge, Made in Heaven, Mirzapur. These series have been garnering some very good reviews. So I think, of course, the supply demand and what the public accepts, it's going to be there. But I think the bigger threat will also come from Hollywood. So what I feel is that going forward, the Indian audience, as they come of age, as rural audience gets access to more and more content, the struggle for Bollywood will only increase because they'll be competing not just in terms of CGI. For instance, Bollywood will take another 20 years to get where Avengers Endgame could. But it's also going to be the kind of stories they tell. I don't think commercial cinema has a very bright future. Even on OTT, people won't tune in to watch commercial cinema. What people will now tune into is the story, the writing, and the experience. So that is where I see Bollywood going. What are your thoughts on this?
No, absolutely, Tushar. I mean, you know, India itself is having a journey. You know, it's often talked about that. You know why people fell in love so greatly with Sachin Tendulkar, because his rise was concurrent with India's rise. You know, as it moved away from the constricted, very sort of a socialist paradigm that keeps you, compressed, and then you started to open up. And as you opened up, you had someone like Sachin Tendulkar standing up to West Indian fast bowlers and smashing them for fours and sixes. So the journey is there. And I think something like that is slated to happen even with our Indian film industry. I wouldn't say just Bollywood because we've been saying Bollywood, but actually across, even regional cinema, for instance, is getting so much space on these channels. So as India opens up further and, as our priorities change now, for instance, our space program has been such a success of late. That is something that's going to inspire, hopefully, films where people like you and I and others can actually make films around these themes. Because back in the day, it was to get a telephone you got to wait I don't know how many years. But now we are looking at these rockets that are going into space. We have the Gaganyaan coming up. So as our mental imagination also expands in response to what is possible, our tastes are also going to expand, and as a result of that, we're going to get absolutely, much better stuff in the future. I think, especially this decade, and I think Tushar, you're better placed to speak about this. I think even with the expansion of things like Geo, and with 5G coming up, people are going to be more on their mobile phones. There's going to be so much more exposure to pop culture and entertainment. This decade. What do you think, Tushar?
Absolutely good point about Geo because 600 million people, I think a report recently stated, and we keep talking about Geo on our channel too. 600 million people are going to be signed up on Geo alone around 2025. And Mukesh Ambani is already aiming to be an enabler for digital businesses, which will obviously include entertainment industry too. And fine point made, regional cinema, not just the film industry in Mumbai. Now, my overall take from what happened in the last 7-10 days is that the Bollywood overall is not going to change as much. It's going to expand. It's going to expand to better avenues. But some people who have been the face of these lobbies, the nepotism cards, say the Karan Johar, the Salman Khan, even some of the other star kids, they are going to face the flak when the movies come into the big screens, when their movies start releasing after the lockdown is removed. That is, I think, what's going to happen. When it comes to OTT, of course, we are going to see a limitless expansion of content, not just from Mumbai, not just from Chennai, but from regional cinema. Just recently, I think a movie on Netflix based on a story of a few girls from Northeast India actually got some really great reviews. So we're going to see cinema like this. Punjabis are also experimenting with cinema now, which I'm very happy to see. So you will see things like these coming up, and this will obviously dilute the attention share Bollywood has enjoyed for a very, very long time. And the kind of stardom the three Khans enjoyed, that won't be the same for anyone else again. For instance, whenever we talk about Hollywood also, we don't talk about three or four actors. There's so much to talk about when it comes to Hollywood. There's something on the digital platform. There's something on the big screen. Then there's commercial cinema like Avengers, like the superhero movies they keep making, the Justice Leagues. And then there is the fine cinema which gets to the academies, the likes of what some very famous directors make, the Godfather like movies, which keep happening every now and then. That's what my take is, that the face of the industry will change, the industry may not. What are your concluding remarks on this, Karan?
Tushar, I think in conclusion, I think there's one small point that you touched in your intro as well. I'd like to sort of also bring that up. The idea of mental health. Now, whatever happens in the entertainment industry is happening, right? But there's also a need for greater support for mental health, because you're seeing even in sports, for instance, like Glenn Maxwell walking away. So people have to realize what is happening within them, and they need to find the support and be able to sort of go accordingly, because that is, I mean, like I said before, entertainment is brutal. I mean, you might be the biggest star for 5 years now, but if you're not going to evolve with what the people want, you are going to be absolutely sidelined mercilessly. That is the nature of the industry. And I think in conclusion, I'd just like to say, Sushmita Sen was asked, how were you able to beat this problem of nepotism in the film industry? And she said, just focus on the audience, guys. That was a simple advice, and I think that's a really good advice.
Well, I think that was an insightful discussion, Karan. We can only hope that what happened with Sushant Singh Rajput, we do not get to hear news like that, because it's very disheartening for a nation that loves its actors so much, that loves its cricket so much, its movies so much, things like that. We just hope we don't get to hear something like that. And everyone has a place to succeed in the limitless expansion of this industry. Thank you so much, Karan.
Thank you so much, Tushar.